We started working together at the new year. And say what you just said. You had been watching my YouTube videos for a while.
Yeah, I've been wanting to watch your videos I was watching your videos for a while. I wanted to talk to you and kind of doing, things that the other women were talking about, but then I wanted to talk to you because I knew you would tease out, like, what I would be lying to myself about, because it's easy to say, oh, yeah, you're so right, or whatever, but you can never, it's hard to look at yourself and, I just knew that you would tease out, and you did, because I was saying some stuff like, oh, I should have I should have had nuts with me, or that wouldn't have happened, or certain things like that.
Yeah, and I remember you really had bought into the addiction model too. You weren't refusing what I had suggested, but you were thinking, oh, I just can't control myself. The food, I think from my recollection, you really thought you were addicted to food, and that you will never recover from, right? Can you see that now? When you were like, those foods, I can't control myself. I have some addiction. I can't stop eating. And I actually remember kind of being like, that's not true. You're going to have to surrender that. That's a bunch of bullshit. You've been brainwashed. That's like just something you were told. And clearly it matches the outcome, but you got to look a lot deeper than that. And once you really let go of your food healthiness, wasn't that kind of the last part?
That was a big thing because, yes.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the concept of health is one of the most influential reasons why people restrict food, not considering how food restriction affects your psychology. So the concept of health, you've been given only one idea of it, which is through nutrition and food, which is such a huge push right now in the diet industry. They're making a lot of money fearing people about food. And that type of fear, it's hard not to permeate into your psyche, right? Someone tells you that food causes cancer. How can that not permeate into how you feel about food? Sugar is the devil.
It definitely did. I had a lot of food righteousness, like this is bad and that's good, and
well, and I also want you to keep in mind that it's not your food righteousness, it's the diet culture's food righteousness. You just grabbed it and internalized it as truth, like dogma.
Well, it is in your face a lot. Even when I'm just looking on the computer for other things, there's always something on the side that says 5 foods that are going to, give you cancer, 5 foods that to eat if you don't want belly fat.
Yes.
10 things you should do if this.
And you're not seeing that as advertisement, right?
No.
Someone paid.
I'm not seeing it. I'm just reiterating that it seems like it's always in your face.
It is.
In the morning on the news, everything is all about, your it's horrible to have wrinkles. Even if you're 60, you shouldn't have a wrinkle. There's all
right,
kinds of things.
But no one questions that. They don't consider it's an advertisement. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like when you're watching all that, you're not seeing, this is someone trying to sell a product or a book. This is a massive $1 trillion, industry that is constantly trying to sell because there's trillions of consumption of it. Yes. Just take a step out of that, and you have clearly, but no one's seeing it as, that's a manipulative advertisement. Someone paid that. They're paying that, and actually they're taught to create these very short pieces of eye-catching statements, and usually they need to be full of emotion so that people will click on the link, right?
Yes.
The consumer is actually believing this is going to be good knowledge and education that can help me, so they click on the link, not considering that this is a business selling me some type of control, their book. They're not. It's a sales pitch, and you're reading it as credible knowledge. And sometimes they'll link it to, there's been a study done. Let's look at the brains of these people. You're addicted to sugar. It's like cocaine. And you're just ignorantly listening to it, not thinking like a scientist, which you should be, right? If you're going to use science to prove something, right? These people are presenting a study that they're using to manipulate you into buying their diet, their way of thinking. When I wrote Weight Loss Apocalypse, there's how to market your book, and this is actually how they educate people to sell. Use 5 ways to get rid of belly fat. That's clickbait. And they'll give you little bits of good information, and then you're being trained to believe this is true, and it's reputable, and it's credible. So that's why I said to you, you need to make sure you know that this isn't your health righteousness. This is the business of health righteousness's way of manipulating you. And you just bought it like, this is credible. I'm going to click it. I'm going to read the blog, and there's a book that'll tell me all the detail that I don't know that's going to save me because I had a friend get cancer, right? And then you're making these assumptions that it's because she ate too much broccoli. Broccoli! That exists. Go look it up. Broccoli and cancer.
I used to click on the stuff, but ever since I've accepted myself, I don't think to myself, oh yeah, I need to find out how to lose belly fat. I just have it, and that's just how it is.
Well, and you have to get rid of your fear about it, right? So that's something that I have to oftentimes with you and with clients, that you really come to me with all of these emotional problems, all of these symptoms, right, of anxiety, and like you were having real anxiety with food, and then you were having real types of control around that. You're controlling the food because there's anxiety. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually, again, would make sense. The overdeveloped, or the impulse and the need to be, food is bad, I need to look at this and that. That's actually makes sense relative to the anxiety you have with food. We have to look at why there's so much anxiety with food. And when someone comes to me, it's usually because they feel that their body is like there's something threatening about it. So they're threatened by their body.
I did
like your belly fat.
By my body,
I'm unhealthy.
But I did feel like that.
Yeah. Before. So the reason why, for you and for many people I work with, because you're predictably clicking the bait, right? Because you're sensitive to this stuff, is because you feel threatened by your body, and there's that underlying desire to be wanted and liked and loved, and to be people to be attracted to you. But the part of the diet culture that makes it so pervasive, okay, unseen. It's like this cloud that just distorts your view, and you don't know what's happening, is the idea of health. And they're using fear of body too. So it's not just fear of food, it's fear of health. This began after World War II. That's a theory around how we became so fear-based around health, right? So how you felt about, I'm unhealthy, I'm going to get cancer, I'm going to get diabetes, I have to do something about this. That feeling is going into why you're searching for answers. And the industry that sells food restriction has basically taken a lot of control and power, and has become this entity that no one questions as valid and credible. You have to go to the foundation of why you're being so easily manipulated. So we had to go into, are you really unhealthy? Let's really think about this here, right? Going into, your body's supposed to gain fat under that environment. That's actually an indication of health, that you're gaining fat. The body's supposed to do that physiologically under this environment. That's healthy, right? We had to really look at the concept of health and how small how limited the idea that having more body fat creates lack of health. That is such a small perception of what health is about, right?
Yes.
And the only reason why you were willing to open your mind is because you clearly had psychological evidence and physical evidence that what they're selling, which you didn't think is a sale, you thought it was, they're trying to help me. They have good integrity, right?
Yeah, they're trying to put out science facts or something.
To help us. I know you're laughing now.
It seems funny now, but it wasn't funny then.
No, and I guarantee you there are people listening who are going, I never thought of that. I never thought it was clickbait. I thought it was something I needed to read. You know? Anyway,
yeah,
so
but thinking about it now, I mean, they wouldn't have put it on there unless somebody paid them to put it on there.
Yeah, they're paying for that. They're sponsoring that advertisement that doesn't look like an advertisement, right? Because it's in your Facebook feed. It's sponsored. Or you have someone, who is just like you, who's following a group that promotes this shit, that they're selling a program, right? Yeah. So it's really having to question, am I really unhealthy? And if their way of thinking about health, if the approach that they're taking, which is all about food and restrictions, why the evidence is showing that it's actually caused more damage, right? You, along with everybody here listening to this video, have spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of clickbait reading, a lot of groups that you're following, a lot of emails that you're getting sent to you by someone who wrote a book, who's trying to, sell their control for you to restrict yourself with the idea that you're unhealthy. You're investing a lot, and you clearly have evidence it is not working. The degree that you spend thinking, wanting, pursuing, studying, hoping, and the evidence is, if it worked, you'd be in the thin supremacist church sitting at the front pews like everybody else that's doing it.
Right. And I really did think that before, Robin. I mean, even after I was watching your videos, I thought, well, maybe it's just me. It's always just
I'm addicted.
Me.
Well, and you brought some stories too to the table. Stories and actual experience with post-traumatic stress. So some of those can influence how you perceive yourself too, because you actually believe I have something wrong with me, which is why what Robin's saying doesn't work. It won't work for me. Right?
But now, what you've been saying and what we've been talking about is working.
Well, you and I haven't talked for a long time. So we took a big break because we thought you'd done so well. And there's been a big break. And how is it working at this point, right?
No, but I've had such a relief on my mind because I don't think about, is this going to make me fatter? Is this going to give me belly fat? Are my thighs going to get huger? Because I just have accepted how I am, and I can't believe how freeing and what what a relief it is. I feel like.
Well, that was my point, that what we've been doing. So you were somewhat skeptical, but believing enough that you were willing to fork out the money, right? There's that.
Yeah.
Desperate enough,
because
but hopeful enough.
Always teasing out and other people, like something they would say, and then you would be able to figure out something about each person, and so that's what I wanted you to do for me.
Yes, and so you came, and you were willing and open, and it took a few sessions, but you had so with that said, my point is this: once we kind of got you to be aware, and that's all it is, right? It's like all I'm doing is opening your mind to see this. And once you're like, holy crap, I've been manipulated, I'm not unhealthy, and also I would rather be unhealthy physically the way that they're fearing to have the freedom of your psychological health back, right? So how's it working? How's your recovery working? It's been a month, 2 months since we've really talked.
Yeah.
How's it working? Yeah. And you came to me on the verge of binging quite a bit.
Yep.
And is it hard? Is this taking tons of work? Do you have to have tons of self-control?
No, you don't have to have any. I mean, I don't have any.
How do you feel if you were to look at the big picture of health, compare your health now to what it was the day we did a consult?
It's just 100% improved, I would say. I'm healthy all the time now. Now I don't. Another thing we talked about was that I was fearful because there was things I wanted to do, and after I accepted that I'm just overweight, this is the body I'm in, the whole thinking I'm going to get into these smaller clothes and all this sometime. As soon as I do the HCG, I just have to have my head on straight and all that. Everything would be fine. And not really realizing that everything was fine already. I just was twisted psychologically, I think.
Well, and you probably never had allowed yourself to take how your life is currently and then accepted it. What I find is that when
it suggested that I go out and just do those things that I wanted to try, and I did, and I even tried the rock climbing at school, and because they had special harnesses for every size and every ability, and I tried it, and actually I don't really like it. But
okay, so I think that's
because I felt too fat or anything.
Okay, so here's an interesting side note on that. How much fantasy did you put into, I want to rock, climb, and I can't because I'm overweight. And so you fantasized probably about how amazing rock climbing would be. Right. So you over fantasize about the things you can't do. You create this illusion of what it's going to be like. And this was what I loved when you texted me back and said that, like, oh, the rock climbing thing. It's like, in reality, it wasn't as what you wanted to do. Not to say that it's not fun and amazing for other people, right? Because some people just love it and they practice it and it's important. But for you created this fantasy. It got bigger in your mind because you couldn't do it because you thought you were too fat.
Right.
And when you actually allowed yourself to do it, it just wasn't for you. So compare.
Right. No, I got up to the top and all that, and yeah, it's just not my deal. I don't like it.
So
I don't like being up at the top.
Yeah, compare that, okay, your reality to how you used to fantasize about it when you believed you had to be thinner to do it.
The reality was totally different from the fantasy because I was imagining myself, already thin and then going rock climbing.
Yeah. So it was more magical in your mind than it really was.
Yes.
And here's the thing. If you hadn't have accepted your body as it is right now, with all the weight, with everything, with all the unhealth around it, right? You would still be sitting in my life is deprived because I can't go rock climbing. In reality, it's not something you actually enjoy. So just think about the degree of effort and work you would have had to have done to be thin enough to go rock climbing, and then for it to not be as rewarding. So the degree of isolation, food deprivation, constant monitoring of your weight, the idea that the gratification of thinness is going to create this illusion of fantasy around this life. And then imagine you start rock climbing and it isn't gratifying. How that can backfire in the...
I probably would have ate a bunch of food thinking I deserved it because I suffered for so long or something like that.
And you know what? I deserve... Because you restrict your food for some type of illusion or fantasy or reward psychologically attached to being thin, and it's not like you thought. And so you start to feel punished. And that's what you're describing. You might not consciously go, I'm being punished, but the feelings are, life just isn't great. And you can't pinpoint it, right? Because you're not consciously aware that, first of all, you fantasize. You never question that your ideas of what life's going to be like thinner is a freaking lie that you've been sold by the thin supremacy industry, right? And then you experience, if you were thinner, that experience, and it isn't the way you fantasized it. So you put yourself in this cage to get this great reward. The reward is not like you thought, and you start to feel punished and deprived. The sacrifice you made with food isn't necessarily as rewarding. And so can you see why you would have why people would then try to create a reward to that sacrifice by giving themselves lenience with food? Because life isn't better.
I can see it now, yeah. I feel like I can see a lot more now.
Yeah, life is the same. It's the same life. It's the same rock climbing. It is the same. It's not the fantasy. The fantasy is what's creating this relative deprivation around what life's supposed to be like. This is really common in not just body image, it's like marriage image. We have a fantasy about our husband and how he should treat me and how our life should be, and vice versa, right? Men think the same thing about women. We have a fantasy around what it's supposed to be like, and then we get into reality and we're all pissed off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's the other thing you may have been fantasizing about is like the dating. Like, when I'm thinner, it'll be much easier. Well, these guys are the same. They don't necessarily change unless they're very narcissistic and superficially motivated. They're the same. They have the same personalities. They have the same dirty bathrooms. They have the same whatever it is, whether you're thin, overweight, or obese. They're the same. It's not like when you lose weight, they become more amazing men.
Yeah.
That's a weird fantasy.
You think they're going to be more attentive or nicer to you or something. I don't really know what I thought it would be, but I did also think about dating that I thought it would be better.
Yeah.
And now I don't.
It's the same. It's the same. Yeah, it is. And I swear to God, someone's listening to this video going, no, it's not. It's not the same. Well, it is. You're going to get rejected when you're thinner because and you're going to reject people when you're thinner. I have a really good friend who has issues and has for years with anorexia and binge eating. She's recovering. We've not worked together, but she's in a totally different place, but she's got a hot, fit bod and having terrible time dating. It's hard. Not only because she still has her thin issues, so she's filtering people based on thinness, but Because when it gets down to it, the reality is, you know, do they meet your fantasy? Or can you just get along? You know, it's like if you can just get along, for some people, that's not good enough. Because they have a fantasy of what they want. They don't realize that they're the ones who are limiting themselves, right? That is not to say that there are not assholes who will not date you unless you meet the physical standard, right? This goes both directions. That absolutely exists. They want a blonde. I'm brunette, right? They want someone who's short. You're tall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This person wants someone who's obsessive compulsive about fitness. You're pretty average doing yoga, right? So
yes, and I feel so much better. I'm so much better with yoga. My ankles and knees, stuff that people don't. I mean, I used to focus on my fat and my thighs and my stomach, whatever, anything that. But now it's not really the fat I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on the strength of stuff that I never worked on before. Well, I'm not even working on it. Just my strength in my ankles and my knees. So much. I'm gaining so much strength, but it's not something that I would have focused on before. I would have never thought about my ankles, which are so important to hold yourself up.
They are. That anterior tibialis in the front and the ability to have flexion and extension in, the back and the front. Totally. And this is a great side note that you don't have to know how to do that for it to naturally just do it on its own. The body has an incredible system through millions of years of evolution that work without your knowledge. Like standing on a single leg pose, you don't have to control your toes. You don't have to, necessarily, control the adductors. All this stuff, if you have a good teacher, happens on its own. Just lock the knee, square your hips. There you go. And all of this other stuff happens without your knowledge.
Right, it does. And but before, there was a lot of, thinking, when I first started the yoga, I was thinking, but this is before I talked to you also, I was thinking, I'm going to just do this yoga and it'll help me get thinner. And of course, you find out in yoga that that's not really yoga's focus at all.
No, that's very ego.
It doesn't really have anything to do with that. It's turning inward. But I do feel great because of it, physically, because my ankles and legs are getting stronger. Like the other day, I was about to miss a bus, and I just took off running for the bus. And then when I sat down on the bus, I was like, oh my God, I just took off running. I can't believe that.
And before you would have had that experience, and you would have been pissed because you were breathing too hard because you're overweight.
Yeah, I mean,
would not even notice.
Hard, got on the bus and sat down, but just for a second, and I would have been really hard on myself. Like everybody's looking at me because I'm so fat and breathing hard, like which is totally natural if you just take off running for the bus.
Yeah, for thin people too. See, this is the other part. You fantasize about a body that's thinner, what it'll feel like, and sure, there are definitely mechanical differences. Gravity is the same. Your weight is less, right? There's those differences. But the fantasy that people who are overweight, they tend to magnify the ease that thinner bodies have. It's not true.
I still kind of, I don't know if I do. I did that. I did that a lot before, and maybe I still think that
of course you do.
Bodies.
Well, and here's the thing. Anorexics who are thin, they tend to magnify how easy a thinner body is too, which is how they motivate themselves to continue the restriction that it takes for them to maintain their thinness. So I have a client who's anorexic. She's gained 10, 15 pounds, and she has created so much negative physical problems with a 15-pound gain. We're talking she went from 120 to 135. Okay, so think about that for a second. How she's created, my thighs are rubbing together. It's so uncomfortable, right? So that she's magnifying the discomfort of her thin body, because she's also magnifying the comfort of the thinner body.
Oh, so I've done that. I've magnified the discomfort of a fatter body and
magnify the discomfort of the fatter body and magnify the comfort of the thinner body. Yes. So you're doing the same thing. Yours is more to, you've created the magnified discomfort of your body, and then you magnify the illusion of the fantasy of thinnerness. Even if there are slight differences, it's being magnified. This is why when we go into acceptance, what that does is it forces you to really engage with how your body really is. The problem is if you have a fantasy of a better body, it makes the sense of feeling deprived and punished by having to accept what you have worse, because you've magnified how bad your body is. So your response to having to keep your body becomes extreme. That's why almost everybody, in fact, everybody, feels so catastrophic when I first initially say, tell me what your life would be like if you had to stay in this body. And this distorted horror, right? Which is why even just comparing it to, well, what if you went blind? They go, oh, well, that's worse. Well, of course, because you've distorted how bad your body is, right? But they don't question that. So when you are forced to stay in this body and there's no alternative, all of a sudden you're no longer as irrational about how hard it is, the hardship of it. You start to think, well, this isn't that bad. Well, it's because you have to accept it. And when you believe in the fantasy of a betterment, you tend to take what you have and make it horrible. This is like marriage. Oftentimes someone who believes in a fantasy of a better man, a better marriage, they take their existing spouse and demonize them as horrible. This is how people cheat. This is how they manipulate that. Now, on the other side of that is battered wife syndrome, where they take someone who is extremely abusive and they make them seem nice. Okay, so it's not black or white. There's a lot of gray between making what you have, which is fine, terrible, and making something terrible fine. The goal is you are aware of reality and that you can adapt in reality, and that you can have that you have discernment or balance around something that does maybe take work and what it's worth working for, versus something that takes slavery to just be okay, right? So, and the other side of that would be you have something that is neutral and then making it terrible because you fantasize about something better elsewhere. This is like something that can be applied in everything. So in the case of body image, for most people, they are not taking something terrible and making it okay. Granted, that does happen. Most of the clients I work with, though, are in the spectrum of taking the thinnerness and making it way bigger than it really is. Someone who may be 600 pounds because they need the obesity because of massive amounts of trauma, and it becomes something that is they want it. Okay, they may distort it into being better than it is, right? That's not a lot of the clients I work with fit in that category. Most of my clients are on the side of, in fact, all of them are on the side of thin supremacy. That's my specialty, right?
I'm sure I was that client.
Yes, every single client I've worked with is that. Not to say that the other doesn't exist. That's just not my specialty. I don't have, that would probably be more for someone who is very educated and trained in trauma, right? So, if you're listening to these videos, you're attracted to this because you're more than likely fantasizing and making thinness way, way bigger than it really is.
Right. And at first when I was watching the videos, I was watching them until I, had to get up and clean the house, and I was listening to them. So at first when I was watching them, I was seeing your image, and I was thinking, okay, well, look at her. She looks great. I don't think she's ever been fat. She doesn't look like she's ever been fat. So maybe she doesn't really know what I'm thinking. But then after I heard you speaking to several people, when I'm not looking at your image, then everything clicks because, okay, she's right. Then you were totally clicking with me because I wasn't just sitting there judging you and looking at your arms and whatever,
No, that's what you guys are doing. Many of you are doing that right now, the listeners. They're thinking, she just doesn't understand how hard it is to be morbidly obese. She just doesn't get it. And she's telling me to accept 250 pounds, 300 pounds. She doesn't get it.
Until I started just listening, and then I realized, she totally gets it. She's just suffering on the other end of the spectrum. I mean, you were suffering on the other end of the spectrum.
You know what? I had been 285 pounds at one point. So this is the thing. At one point, I was 285 pounds. So, how do we know? How do we know? How fat do you have to be to get the psychology of this? Right?
So that I did do that, and I'm glad to hear that other people.
Everybody who comes and listens to these YouTubes, who is a binge eater, questions if I really know what I'm talking about, because they think it's a physical problem. So if she doesn't have that physical body, she must not know what she's talking about. Well, when you really open your mind, it's not a physical problem. It's a perceptual problem. It's a system that's the problem. Your body's not the problem. It's your perceptions, right? So that perception, I absolutely get. I've been there. I understand that perception, and I've been an extremist at that perception. I was a zealot at that perception. So that's actually on par with all you binge eaters out there. You're the same. You're just as fundamentalist about it. You're just as radical as I was. That's why you have so much shame. That's why your shame is so big. It's because you're that extreme. And you think it's your body. That's the difference. That's why people who even feel the way you do still continue to listen to my YouTubes. Because they know, even if they don't like the fact that I have a neutral body image, they know that what I'm saying, there's truth to it.
Yes.
It may cause some dissonance. You may not like to hear it, and it hurts. And it hurts that, she just said that. Oh my God, that hurts. I don't like it. Dissonance. Oh my God, I can't watch it. She's just making me feel rage. Why? That's because there's truth in what I'm saying.
Right. But after we talk, I take a couple days to process it and think about it, and then and ask myself questions now. Before I would just, follow the dogma of, I'm fat because I eat too much dairy or I eat too many carbs. That was a big thing.
And your blood sugar and your insulin spikes, and oh my God, and then that creates fat. That is so outdated science anyways. It's way more than that.
Yeah, but I believed all that.
Too shallow.
I'm doing so much better after I accepted myself. Even though I was eating to the hunger scale, now the hunger scales become even more automatic. I don't think as the numbers that you described before. I don't really think in that way. But I did at the beginning, which I think was good because that was a helpful tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to be conscious, because you had been so unconscious with food before. You went from extremely mentally focused on food to an intuitive. I don't like that word. Intuitive is not the right word. To mindful about it, around just listening to the body.
Yes.
So it's less mind, more sensory. Because before it was very mental around what I can't eat, what I shouldn't eat. When should I eat? What time is it? How much? What can I? That's very mentally, that's the brainwashing, okay, versus the sensory of it, which is feeling it. I feel it versus I think it.
Right.
Again, dieting is very thinking oriented. All the clickbait that you're seeing on Facebook and blogs, all the clickbait that they're selling is very mentally focused. Very, very thinkingness. You have to think about it. What we're doing has no thoughts at all in any way. It's very...
yes, it's more like that now. And I do want to say that you did have a video on there, and it was called Robin's Lesson or something, that sort of like took me through like this one time you had to eat right then and there, and you got sushi in your car or something like that, and I thought to myself, oh, she can eat sushi. But then you stopped eating it, just to take the edge off. And then another time I saw you eating like salad with chicken on it or something, and I thought, oh my God, if that was me, I would have ate the whole salad with chicken on it because I knew that wouldn't make me fatter. But I remember you eating it and then like stopping for a second, and you're like, no, I don't want any more. And now I feel like I'm not to that point. And it doesn't matter what it is. And before I thought, why wouldn't she just eat the whole chicken salad? Because, it was like chicken on top of salad. Because, that's like something that Weight Watchers and, just every diet thing that I've ever done, that's like a healthy dinner.
Yeah, and you're to eat. Well, and that comes, and that...
I hardly eat the whole thing of anything just because
it's because you don't have anxiety. That's really, if I were to break it down for you, the reason why you don't have the impulse to finish everything is because you no longer have anxiety. It is the anxiety that you had before that created all that mental thinking about it, which is why you were eating the whole thing, because of portions. That's thinkingness. Yeah. So you're way more relaxed right now. We're more easygoing about it. You have no fear. You have no anxiety. That's really important. I knew what you were going to say, but I knew that you weren't connecting the dots between the fact that there's lack of anxiety now that allows you to chill when you're eating, and so you don't have to eat it all because your body is regulating how much you're going to eat of whatever you've chosen. You just listen, right? It's sensory, not thinking. Before that, thinking is really a sign of anxiety.
Well, that has to be exactly what it is, because it doesn't matter if it's for an example, it doesn't matter if it's a healthy thing or something considered unhealthy. Like last night for dinner, I ate a scoop of chocolate ice cream. That's what I ate for dinner because that's what I wanted, and I always want some, and so I finally bought some because I remembered, not because it was going to be like a treat or anything. I was like, oh, I think I just want to have this.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes people would listen to this and go, oh my God, how can she be healthy eating ice cream? Do you eat ice cream every day, all the time now? And do you binge on it?
I mostly eat healthy, what's considered like healthy things all the time now. But, the ice cream thing, because I didn't want anymore. I just wanted the soup. I didn't even want the whole thing.
So you didn't binge?
No.
When was the last time you binged?
Maybe like I did it a couple times right before I called you, even though I was mostly eating to the hunger scale. Sometimes I would eat past to where I was like really sick full and thinking I was using the hunger scale properly. And sometimes I would, and then I would have, times when I would still, could have stopped like a lot earlier, and then I would be full, and it's a horrible feeling.
I know it certainly is, but now you're not. Now you're very conscious of that feeling, no matter what you're eating. It could be a salad. It could be Brussels sprouts. It could be French fries. It doesn't matter what it is. You're very conscious of avoiding that feeling. So it doesn't matter how much you're served.
So now I'm open to eat anything that I want.
Yeah, so, because you're using that edge. I mean, you're probably not even getting close to that edge anymore. You're very clear about where you're comfortable. And so being clear of that comfort allows you to stop no matter how much you're given. So like you don't know ahead of time how much food you're going to eat. You have no idea at the beginning of the day when or how much you're going to eat. Right? So you don't know until you're presently eating and feeling that. I don't plan it out anymore like I used to. Yeah, well, and again, this is something that some people are hearing going, how do you do that? I can't stop. Well, it's because you don't have anxiety about that food anymore. The only reason you don't have anxiety about that food anymore is because you don't think your body's unhealthy, even though you have the body fat. The only reason why you have that is because you accepted the disease of the body as a better exchange than, or as a betterment from having to suffer trying to continue to fix the body as your purpose in life, right? So can you see how
exactly right.
So the idea of eating to the hunger scale as presented in Weight Loss Apocalypse, that's ideal. That would be what I presented in that book is what happens after you recover from body image problems, right? When you let go of your ideas of thinness is healthier, when you surrender the fantasy, this ease eating to hunger scale. And the other thing is you don't have to do it because you deserve to lose weight. You're not eating to hunger so that you don't gain weight. You're not eating to hunger so that you can be thinner. You're eating to hunger because that's a benefit. It's so beneficial in itself. You don't need a reward for eating to hunger. This is what I repeated so many times in Weight Loss Apocalypse. The goal is that you can eat to hunger without a reward. You don't need a reward. It's inherently rewarding because you don't have to think. You don't have to have fear. You have no anxiety. You just relax and let the body guide that consumption, right? But it's very difficult to do if you have these perceptions of I'm unhealthy. The food is bad for you. Then all of a sudden that anxiety while you're eating comes in and you can't sense your body because you're sensing anxiety, which is why you're eating the whole thing.
That's right. You can't sense your body because the whole time you're thinking, anxiety. I shouldn't be eating this.
It's the mental. That's the thought. That's the thinkingness.
Carbohydrates for one person, and
I can only have a few more bites. I shouldn't be. Yeah.
Now that to me seems more unhealthy. Sitting there while you're eating, having all these negative thoughts towards the food that you're eating.
Correct. So when you see those clickbaits, 5 things that you shouldn't eat, you're like, that's unhealthy. Why? That right there. It is so counterintuitive that they would actually suggest that way of thinking and then say that their way of being is healthy. Right?
Exactly.
I know. I do think that it's important to acknowledge, however, that people can make modifications to the food choices that they make and not have these issues. Difference is that they're not in fight or flight about the choices. I have a friend who, when she eats dairy, she has terrible diarrhea. So for her, it's like inherently beneficial to reduce dairy. Because of that, right? Because of that, she doesn't have shame, guilt, fear, thinkingness around, oh my God, is there dairy? That comes from that emotional distortion and fear around unhealth. So, make sense? So for her, she doesn't have panic attacks looking at what doesn't have dairy in the menu and what has dairy at all. Because it isn't about all me being able to, go on this, vacation as a thinner body. Like, she's not creating fantasy around what life would be like if she didn't have diarrhea, which eats dairy. Right? There's no fantasy illusion around what life would be like. So there's no pressure when she chooses less dairy in her diet. She doesn't feel restrictive. And then when she has dairy, she doesn't feel like she did something wrong or bad. And she's not binging on dairy, saying, well, I had dairy already today, I'm going to have diarrhea, so I might as well binge on dairy all day, right?
Right. But I used to think that too, Robin. Like, if I ate something, then I'd just eat it all day because I already ruined everything, and now everything's ruined. I used to think like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it had nothing to do with the actual reality of health, right? I have another client who's the same way. She's struggling. She's anorexic, and she's going to go on a diet. And so I'm helping her get ready to do it because that's what she's going to do. So I got to get her mentally prepared to relapse on the food side again, because she's already relapsed on the body image side. Well, she had already bought a ton of food to binge on that night. And I had said, well, if you've already binged today, if you're going to start dieting tomorrow, you should just start dieting right now. Why binge? Well, because she's like, well, I've already ruined it. Well, I'm like, well, is this really about your health? Because she was like, I need to do it for health. Well, if it's about health, does it make sense to binge the rest of the day? Right? Because now if it's about health, your body can recover from that previous earlier binge. Do you really need to keep on binging? And if you're going to try to do this for weight loss, you're really saying it's okay to gain another pound or 2 or 3 pounds tonight binging, and then you're going to have to add those 3 pounds in your weight loss phase. I mean, do you see how irrational that is?
I do now.
I know, but the whole concept, if I failed already, that's psychological. That's not physical failure. So even if you're 250 pounds, that one binge is way less damaging to your health than the entire day binging. So if it's about health, consider that all or nothing, I ruined it. That's about your weight.
Yeah.
Because I can't lose weight today. I might as well give myself freedom from these restrictions. This is about that psychological need to feel safe and free with food for that day, right? Anyways, so
Robin, there is one thing I did want to talk to you about. I remember I told you I was gonna take these MOOC classes. They're like nutrition classes for the VA.
Yes.
And they're okay. And I did learn a lot about cooking oils. I have learned some stuff that I didn't know.
Cool.
But we came to like the psychological piece, and I part of the class, and so the lady gave us the scenario. I can't exactly remember how the scenario goes, but it was like bullet points, and it's something like, you skipped breakfast, you haven't eaten all day, you had a stressful day at work. It goes through the whole scenario. Then you come home, and the first thing you do is go to the kitchen, and you have left out some fried chicken, and so you eat the fried chicken. And so then she asked the class, what's wrong with the scenario? And everybody, like, every step of the scenario was wrong, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with the scenario.
There isn't anything wrong with that scenario. Other than, there isn't. That sounds like a scenario. Why make something wrong about it?
Right. So she's like, well, but she was pointing out, well, other people said, you should, every part of all the bullet points, everybody was like, well, you should have ate breakfast, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should never have fried chicken.
Notice the brainwashing in that thinkingness, right? Notice the brainwashing, and how do they know those answers? Where are they getting that information?
So I was like, well, if you haven't eaten all day and there's some fried chicken there, I don't see what's wrong with eating fried chicken. You haven't eaten all day. And so...
well, if you're hungry, right? You assume that when you get home, you're hungry.
So they're like, well, the first thing, you shouldn't just go straight to the kitchen when you get home from work, and you should always have breakfast, and just all these strange things that I have not been practicing.
Did you have to bite your tongue?
I didn't bite my tongue. I told them, but nobody really agreed with me.
No.
I thought there was nothing wrong with eating fried chicken, and she said, well, it's a really calorie dense thing, and maybe you shouldn't keep it around if you're struggling with your weight.
Okay, that's an educator right there too, huh?
Struggling with my weight. So,
yeah, this is where you just need to bite your tongue.
I did, well, after that, because everybody just thought, they're like, well, step one, you didn't eat breakfast. Well, sometimes I don't eat breakfast. Most of the time, I don't eat breakfast. And especially after reading Weight Loss Apocalypse and, talking to you and listening to you talk to others, it's not that big a deal if I don't, wake up and eat breakfast. I'm not hungry. And that's it's a big deal to some people that you have to, force yourself to eat breakfast.
So here's the thing. I want you to think about all of the information, at least from your awareness, that you would have to put together for that class to go, yeah, that makes sense.
I don't understand, what I'm aware of now?
Yeah, what you would have to do to get that class in that moment and that teacher to actually understand your viewpoint.
Well, I have to read Weight Loss Apocalypse.
On top of all the work that you and I have done, and the idea that being overweight isn't necessarily unhealthy, and that you shouldn't be controlling your food to that degree. All of that mental thinking has consequences, and that's not really, it's a sign of anxiety and having problems, actually. You know what I'm saying? Think about what it would take. So if I was in that class with you, I would have just bit my tongue, knowing that this is just, they just don't understand the whole picture.
There was no way to turn everybody around.
No, nor the teacher. The teacher clearly has issues too.
All day.
Yeah.
You just did everything wrong by living your day. And
yeah. And you should be so concerned about your weight. You have to prioritize what you can and cannot do with food to make sure it's so controlled to avoid weight gain. Because that's the most important thing. Screw the stress you were dealing with. No one's questioning it.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. Not having food that you like in the house because it's too distracting that you'll eat it.
You shouldn't even have fried chicken. Why?
I got given 2 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. They're still here. I like Girl Scout cookies.
Well, see, this is after the fact. This is after you've had this recovery. So people, in that class, to include that teacher would have said you just shouldn't buy the Girl Scout cookies. Just don't buy them.
I know. That's what they were saying in the class. Don't buy things that are... So basically, just buy carrots and celery. I didn't
and they're not even looking at the consequences of wanting Girl Scout cookies, being around Girl Scout cookies, and then being told you can't have them. And they're fearing you that they're unhealthy. How that is going to impact your desire for Girl Scout cookies. And then having to hide them.
We can't control ourselves around Girl Scout cookies.
Well, that's because they don't see that their restricting of Girl Scout cookies is actually harmful. They don't see the connection of their restrictions to the impulsive need for it, right? So backwards, super inside out, right? And so what you've had to do is flip your mind inside out to get here, to go, wow.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's where you just, this is where it's good for you for going to that nutrition class, but is it not confirming your recovery even more?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And this is someone who is teaching people to think this way, not maliciously at all. She's totally has thin supremacy and this idea of health righteousness with thinness because she's been taught that by the system that is making hundreds of trillions of dollars, never questioning it. And she's probably not extreme, but that right there is a great example of how different your way of thinking is about it now. After the fact, it's not because you're ignorant or naive anymore. It's because you have been fully through. You've been chewed up and spit out by that industry and you're done. So you're hearing them going, that's weird. Why should you be prioritizing? It's almost like they want you to be obsessed about your weight That's how you be thin.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Like,
You're supposed to obsess about it.
And then you're feeling like you're wrong all day. Like everything is wrong because this is going to make you fatter by not eating breakfast. This is going to make you fatter by going to the kitchen before, before you take off your shoes. This is going to make you fatter by eating fried chicken even though you haven't eaten all day.
Yeah, they need you to be obsessed with thinness to where you prioritize your thinness and what it's going to take based on their religious ideology around food. You better listen to, you have to eat breakfast and you should never have fried chicken. What's wrong with fried chicken?
But the woman who was the nutritionist was actually more helpful psychologically because of what I said. She said there is nothing wrong with fried chicken. There's nothing wrong with any of the foods that we're suggesting because I talked to her after. And then the next class, she kind of reiterated that.
Good, because you know what? Just imagine if you didn't say, hey, look, what you're doing is, you clearly had a conversation with her to make her think, and she knew you're right, enough to the point that she had to correct it, but would she have if you weren't there to suggest it? What if you just bought into it? Yeah, you should eat breakfast, which is all that shit that creates continuous guilt and shame on a daily basis. That underlying, I suck, I fail, I suck, screw it, all of that.
Yeah.
You should eat breakfast. That just adds to I suck. You shouldn't eat fried chicken. I suck. Just think of all the suck that you end up feeling with those thoughts. That's what you should do. Well,
yeah.
Anyway, so
the nutritionist lady was more helpful than the lady that does the psychology part.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. She probably is anorexic.
And I have learned a lot about, stuff like, smoking points of oils and things like that. And,
those are interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, and how the body digests it. But
going to be helpful.
But notice how that's not moral.
You're right, I have put my mind inside out because now I just don't think there's anything wrong with any food. When I used to really think bread was the devil and pasta was the devil.
And it's always around quantity too, and that's the thing that people who are very food righteous, like you shouldn't have fried chicken. Well, sure, having like an entire fried chicken in one sitting might cause some harm to your digestive tract.
Right.
You might shit your pants because of all the skin and the fat, and the protein's going to cause a lot. Of course, there's a point of diminishing returns. It's never black and white, right? So the black and white thinking, that is amazing to me that the food psychologist is actually promoting black and white thinking. That is a sign. I don't even know this person, and I would assume she has some orthorexia, anorexia.
She has something because she was also telling the class, well, I haven't been very good lately at messing up and stuff like that. And so I was like, uh-oh.
What does that tell you? Like, this person is teaching this class, and she clearly has a bias towards thin supremacy and anorexia. And probably orthorexia too. But I'm not surprised. Because she's probably going into that because she has issues. And now she's the one teaching the class. So the class is giving her credibility. Okay, you never question this. Give her credibility. She knows she's teaching the class. Thinking that the knowledge of whatever she's read and learned is how you get better. They think it's an intellectual ideology that works.
Yeah.
Not realizing that this person who's read the books and studied clearly is not getting it. But you see it because you don't buy into thin supremacy or orthorexia anymore. So you can see it. The other people who don't see, who believe in thinner people are healthier and eating cleaner is better bullshit, right? They're not going to see her problem. They will not question her in any way.
Everybody in the class for each bullet point was like, well, you should have ate breakfast. Well, you should have done something to not be stressed throughout the day because that causes you to eat. And I was like, whoever this person in the scenario is, just being easy to eat. Have a little something to eat.
And chill and relax and decompress and just listen to her body.
Everybody had a good, and I didn't get it, but I'm glad I didn't get it. I mean, because I would have been like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's my problem. Maybe I should start forcing myself to. In the past, I would have said, maybe I should start forcing myself to have breakfast or something.
And never eat fried chicken.
And never have like the Girl Scout cookies sitting on the counter. Because there's no room in the cabinet because it's so full of food.
Yeah, because it'd be too tempting to eat that bad food that's not good for you.
Yeah, because I somehow don't have control.
Oh, I'm so. This is good. I'm just gonna say this is good that you've had to hear that.
Ever since the acceptance, I just totally have control over food. I don't think about it one way or the other. So I don't think it's control over food. But
good job, you just corrected that.
Control over myself either, but it's just there.
Yeah, your body is, you're managing it.
From the communists, and I'm not in war-torn Syria, or wondering where my next meal's coming from.
I know.
It's all right there.
Yeah, and it's not going anywhere. But before, you were psychologically in the third world mindset.
Yes, I was, very much so.
Yeah, and not knowing it.
I would even prepare and make lists of and measure the food because. I used to think it was all about proportions until I started watching your videos when you would just say, oh, I've had enough to eat. That's fine. I'm fine. And before I would eat so much, Robin, that I really couldn't go about my day. I would be so tired from trying to digest all the food that I shoved in. I couldn't, I just get to experience so much more now. Like I would have been too tired to try the rock climbing or even think about it. Or I would have been too tired for anything just by, eating so much because I was going to diet tomorrow, so I have to eat all this food today.
Well, all that anxiety is absolutely impacting your endocrine system. On top of all the fact that you're overeating out of it. Yeah, I mean, look at so we've gotten you out of that psychological space, and look at how easy this is and how much better you feel, right? So,
right? I can sleep at night, and I don't have night sweats, and I'm 48, so, that's good.
Yeah, so you feel healthier.
And I don't have the night sweats anymore, and I was having them for years before that.
And you're still eating Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah, I haven't got into the Girl Scout cookies yet, but I do like Girl Scout cookies.
Well, my point is, you had ice cream. Hold on a second.
2 weeks.
So you had ice cream last night?
Yes.
So this is, to me, this is where the whole diet culture is so backwards. So backwards, right? Because they would say, oh my God, you had ice cream and you had it later at night. You probably didn't sleep and you had night sweats. And that's why you can't.
But maybe if I ate the whole
of course.
pint of it.
Of course, they don't differentiate about quantity. That's bad food. That's what's causing your problem. They're not looking at the anxiety. They're not looking at, they're just looking right at the food as if that's the end all be all of everything. Right?
Yes.
So just on, I wanted to make sure I brought that up because you're telling me all these symptoms are gone, but yet you're still allowing yourself these terrible poisonous foods. Anyway.
And bread and pasta.
Yeah, and it's just, your need for it is probably so much more minimal because you can always have it. So it's that pressure is spread out through for the rest of your life. So you don't have to eat it all right now because you can only have it today,
Right.
All right, I'm going to stop recording.
I was, even when I first started talking to you, I was like, well, I'll just limit the pasta and bread. But but then after I decided to get rid of all my clothes and all my diet books, I don't have any limits anymore.
No, and notice how it just naturally is regulated. It's just natural. It's not you regulating it. It's a natural physical regulation. It's here nor there. You're super indifferent about food. And it's just easy. And notice how different your symptoms are eating food that previously you would have thought were bad.
Yeah,
it's
like chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, I think people are blaming the food, not the anxiety about the food.
Well, I don't have any anxiety about eating anymore because I don't really have a goal. But
with your body, that's why.
I lost 20 pounds. Remember I told you I was 210?
Uh-huh.
Well, now I'm 190.
Well, do you really care? Do you really care?
No, I didn't know. I didn't really even realize. I mean, some clothes looked looser or something, but I don't have that. I took the battery out of the scale a long time ago.
Well, do you really care? I mean, what will happen is if you start caring about that loss and the size change, your issues will come back. So if you stay indifferent around it, like if at all times you accept regain, so even if you have that ice cream, see, this is a good sign. This is a sign you're indifferent about the thinness. Because if you really liked the thinness and you wanted more, you wouldn't have had that ice cream last night.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So stay indifferent. But, that's
even
really...
though they just told me that I did when I went to go get measured. I mean, weighed.
Yeah, just stay indifferent. Stay to the point where you need to at all times in your mind say, I would rather regain the weight to keep this freedom with food. This freedom with food is not negotiable anymore. My weight can go up and down.
That is true. I would even rather be even fatter.
That's why you haven't relapsed. That's why you have not relapsed. Because someone listening to this is going, well, her life is getting better and she's losing weight and that's why she's doing this. I'm like, no, if she had that attitude about it, she would have relapsed. Your body is naturally doing this. You're not forcing it. You're not mentally thinking about it. It's a natural thing that your body's being allowed to do. Not everybody has this experience, but you clearly are. And it's not because she's younger and has a more amazing, The key here for you is to stay indifferent and to know that I will never negotiate food again. That will always be free. As long as the earth provides it. Right? The body image is negotiable. Let that be indifferent. Up and down, up and down. You might gain 5 pounds this month and go back down. Who knows? Who gives a shit? That's really important. So, is there anything you want to say to the listener before I stop recording?
I don't think so. Oh, I got a dog. So maybe that's why I lost weight. You did notice because she has to have 30 minutes twice a day of walking, which has been lovely. The dog's lovely.
And you enjoy it. And you would do it whether you were 220 pounds or 190. Doesn't matter.
Of course. She has to go outside. Awesome. And she's lovely, and I like her a lot. And before I probably would have been like, I need to be thinner before I can go outside.
Oh my God, isn't that hilarious? I have to be thinner before I get a dog because I don't want to go outside and walk the dog. Oh my God, that is so nuts, isn't it?
Yes.